أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، والصلاة والسلام على أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة والسلام. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل يفقه قولي. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Today's talk, inshallah, will be focusing on relationships, and the specific title of today's talk is Relationships Matter. Today we will be talking about the pillars of healthy relationships. So, how many people knew about today's talk ahead of time? Okay. So good. So for those specifically who heard about it before, I was wondering if you can share what are some of the things that you would like to learn from today. Do we have another microphone? I'm not sure if anybody would like to share. What are some of the things that you would like to have as an outcome of today's talk? So the title is Pillars of Healthy Relationships. Any thoughts? Anything that you were hoping that you will be getting out of today's talk?
Assalamualaikum.
Alaikum salam.
For me, I'd be interested to know how I can improve my friendships, especially close ones, in terms of setting boundaries and just respecting each other's sort of spaces.
Sorry, can you repeat that? How you can, what about friendship?
Improve
Improve?
my friendships in terms of setting boundaries and respecting one another's spaces.
In terms of, can you speak up? Sorry, there's a lot of air blowing in my ear.
Sorry, that's fine. In terms of setting boundaries.
Setting boundaries with friends.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for sharing that. Who else would like to share? Or if you would like to add to that, feel free to do so.
Assalamualaikum, Ustaz.
Alaikum
I
salam.
would like to ask what is the best way or between to maintain a good relationship between husband and wife, and what can do to attain their love towards each other, you know.
I'm sorry, what's the last part?
To maintain the love between husband and wife prolonged. You know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything you'd like to add, or anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Okay, let's go ahead and start. So inshallah, I will cover these two items and a little bit more than that. I do have some slides to share with you. However, my computer decided not to work today, so I have to accept that. So I just wanted to highlight something. Last time I was here, I spoke about self-care. It was about how to take, or the source and effect of self-care, and the source and effect of lack of self-care. So it was about how do I take care of myself? How does each one of us take care of themselves? So some of the things I went over with was some of the mental health related conditions that does impact ourselves, emotions or thoughts. and also a little bit more, and I touched bases on how Islam views mental health conditions and treatment, and how do mental health issues relate to faith. And I also covered and discussed introduction to common types of mental health issues, and I shared a few tips of self-care and tips for seeking help. So just wanted to give you a quick introduction. It is from the Sunnah to introduce ourselves. Since some of you haven't seen the announcement, my name is Ammar. I'm a certified counselor and I'm a certified coach. I do this for a living. So just wanted to share with you some thoughts. So I started talking about the last talk was about self-care, but today's talk is about relationships. So what's the correlation? What's the connection between the two? Anybody would like? My talks are like this. I ask often. Oftenly I ask questions. So I just want to make sure that everybody's awake in this cold room. That's the only way I figured out to keep you all awake. So what does self-care have anything to do with the topic of today, talking about relationships? Anybody would like to talk and share their thoughts? Okay, if you make mistakes, I'm here to correct. We're here all to learn. So it's okay to guess, and inshallah we can work it out. Anybody would like to have the microphone, or they can speak up? What's the relationship? Well, relationship, right? What's the connection between self-care and the topic of today about relationship? And going once. Very good, very good. That's a very good answer. So I'll just repeat it just in case if anybody didn't hear it. So the sister was saying that you need to take care of yourself before you have a relationship. So you need to be stable before we reach out for a relationship or build a relationship. Very good answer. Any other thoughts? Come on, it's really not that difficult. Yes, brother. Very good. Maintaining the balance between taking care of ourselves and taking care of others. And that's exactly because combining what the sister said and what you said, basically that's what relationship is. Another type of relationship is our relationship with ourselves. Often forgotten, often not looked at. It's really important to see our relationship with ourselves. So that was discussed last time. The talk is online. You can look it up. So I will continue talking about today's relationship. So I just wanted to reiterate the relationship with ourselves is just as important with as we were talking to relationship with others. So we have relationship with ourselves, we have relationships with others. What other types of relationships? Relationship with our Creator, with Allah. What other relationships we have? It's a relationship with the situation that we're in. Could be physical difficulty. It could be a health-related matter or condition. It could be a financial-related condition. It could be a lot of things. It's just an environment. It's a situation that we're in. Having our perception and our connection to that situation is going to impact our relationship with ourselves and the relationship with others, as well as our relationship with our Creator, unless we are careful to keep the balance like you mentioned. that clear, or do you want me to repeat? So there are types of relationship with ourselves, relationships with others, relationship with our creator, and there is a relationship with the situation. So a person who is a student, he has or she has a relationship with that situation, that they are a student. A person who is pursuing a degree or in a unstable social life, for example, that's a situation. So the situation differs. Just wanted to make sure that we all understand what does mean situation. Any questions on what I just mentioned so far? Should I keep going? Great. So now we just defined, or we talked about the types of relationships. Now when we talk about, today's talk is about healthy relationships, the pillars of a healthy relationships, the pillars of a healthy relationship, or the pillars of healthy relationships altogether. So all these 4 types that I mentioned apply to these pillars that we will be talking about today. So today I'm going to cover the definition. What is a healthy relationship? And what is the foundation of a relationship? Because if you have a pillar, you need to have a foundation. And what's on top of the pillar? Some building blocks. So we will talk about all of these, and then we talk about a little bit about the types of conflicts. I had a series before here about resolving conflicts, making connections, and that's also online. And I'll just talk today a little bit about types of conflicts and better ways to connect. And then I'll be closing with relationship killers if we have time. All right? So a healthy relationship, you can think of it as a healthy building. If you see a healthy building, what do you recognize? What do you realize about the healthy building? Strong and solid, very good. I'm sure we've seen buildings before, right? Yeah, so good. What do you recognize about this building? It's a really safe and healthy building. How do you recognize that? All right, the structure and the design. What about it? Very good. So the design and the structure and the design will give the people the look, on where it came from, and also how it's put together, how it's built. Very good. What else? I'm sorry? The color, yes, the color of the building. So when I see the color is nice and clean, with the structure being well designed, and so that gives me an idea that this is a healthy building. I can get inside that building. Also, the things that we see now, you wouldn't walk into a building that is crooked, or some part of it is falling off, or that has cracks in it. Do you see the cracks on the walls, or do you see the cracks on the columns of the building? It can be either or, right? Sometimes if you're on the outside, you see the cracks on the outside. You can see it from a distance. And you're like, oh, I don't want to go there. But if there are no cracks on the outside, you walk in, and you see the cracks inside the pillars, inside the columns, you're like, you know what? I need to get out of here. This building is not safe. And very, very similar, the same thing, we can talk about relationships. So if you look at the outside of the building and what makes the walls, those are the skills that people see, the skills we have to have that healthy relationship. If we have those skills, people will see it and they'll say, like, oh, it's safe to make that connection with this person because he sounds like my brother here, sounds really friendly. He looks me in the eye. He's not fidgeting when I'm talking to him. He's giving me attention. He sounds like he has a good skill that I can go and establish a safe relationship with him. So these are the skills, the outside of the building, the walls and the design, like the brother was mentioning. So these are what we're going to be calling today is the building blocks. Now, if we have this relationship and we really made a connection in this relationship, we will go a little bit deeper. So as if we are going inside the building. So we are in the relationship. So the building is the relationship. So you are in the building, you are in the relationship. Sometimes on time or before it's too late, and sometimes after it's too late, you'll start to find the cracks in the pillars of that relationship, or with that person, or in the relationship as a whole. These cracks happen either by time, or they existed before that we didn't see. Okay? And below all of that is the foundation. What do you think the foundation resembles? So I said the walls, the outside, the designs, all that is the skills that we bring in for the relationship. And the columns that are putting the structure together and keeping it together is really we will talk more about that, but that's part of the relationship that we don't see so easily on the outside. We don't see it until we are in the relationship. So what would be the foundation of the relationship? What are some thoughts? I'm sorry? Faith, very good. I give it, it's well known to have the belief systems, because faith is one part, and there is another, so because Iman, and there's Islam, there's Mu'amalat, there's a lot of things there's Aqidah. So belief systems, and that includes values, principles, and all that good stuff that go along with it. That's very good. So that's the foundation. If the foundation is there, it's going to very likely to hold on and keep that structure together. If the foundation is messed up, it will get everything on top of it messed up. And why is that important? For example, you find sometimes, I'll just mention couples or just friends, friends that are quote unquote now or been for the last few years in the Jahiliyyah time, right? They're not practicing Muslims, they're just doing all the stuff. One of them is like, you know what, I want to make tawbah, I need to stop. So what's happening to that foundation? It's shaking, right? Because it's different, right? So before it was all Jahiliyyah time, they all had a system, a belief system that fun, let's do it, spontaneous, doesn't matter. But now one of them is saying, you know what, I want to make tawbah. That happens with us, with our friends, with our family members, and it also happens with married couples. So that shakes the foundation of the relationship. The likelihood of all the stuff that goes out or out of that foundation is going to be impacted. What do you think? Do you guys agree? Yeah. So that's a better action, maybe a better answer to just everybody's nodding. That's really good. So I'll just ask yes, no questions. Okay. So, excuse me. So how does the foundation help in a relationship? So if you look at in general, generally speaking, excuse me, relationship is at risk when the two people or the group that are in the relationship face adversity, when they face a challenge. They resort to Islam, they resort to their belief system to help them cope, right? That ability to go back to the foundation, it will help them to overcome adversity. So the challenge here is that are they all on the same page on how do they, understand adversity from a belief system? And that's where things can also go south. So the skill would be to learn the belief system and how does it help us through adversities. So that's something that would help us in a relationship when it comes down to adversities, distress, um, and also how we view crisis and how do we make a meaning out of a crisis or an adversity. That's the belief system. It helps us to have a meaning for it. If people who are not believing or they're weak in belief, they start asking, why me? And they start having a bad relationship with the Creator. So that impacts our relationship with the Creator. Any questions on that? Also, the belief system gives us hope, positive outlook for the future. The belief system does that, and if that is common between the people in a relationship, that definitely is going to be the foundation that will nurture that relationship. And another thing, also as part of the belief system, is the spirituality and transcendence for the two people who are in that relationship, and that basically says that having a larger objective or value of that relationship. It's not necessarily what you make out of it or what the other person makes out of it. It's something, for example, marrying your spouse for the sake of Allah. That brings it to a higher level. So having that in mind does help in the relationship. And also having, the faith, having contemplation, and also sincerity, hopefulness, fear of Allah, piety, trusting Allah, devoutness, loving Allah, acceptance, all these attributes that we have with Allah does help the foundation to be stronger. The more we have of what I just mentioned, the stronger the foundation for the person. The more they are in sync, the stronger the relationship. So this is a foundation that will resort to that people will resort to if they had any adversities or any crisis. Any questions on that? Any thoughts? Anything anyone would like to add to what I just mentioned, or give an example? Make comments? Yes, that's a very good question. So what if the foundation what if the foundation is different? People have different beliefs. That's very true. Now the foundation is going to help us to nurture that relationship from the foundation perspective, from an Islamic perspective, for example. If I'm a friend with a person who is atheist, right? So it doesn't mean that I have to have the foundation that he has, and doesn't mean that he has to have the same foundation as I do. So having that foundation for me helps me to maintain that relationship. Being sincere with the person, my connection with this person for the sake of Allah, not something else, and so on and so forth. Some people get a little bit mixed in terms of for the sake of Allah. So doing business with non-Muslims is doing it for the sake of Allah, really, because you are doing it to keep yourself and family off the street. You are helping your family to be independent, and you are helping them to do that. So that connection, that relationship is maintained based on your foundation from your part, the other person's foundation. If there are sincerity, excuse me, if there are sincerity on both foundations, and there is truthfulness, and there is all the values and principles are very similar, which is called authenticity, then that would make the foundation very similar. It doesn't have to be identical, but the relationship also can be, can be strong, or can be on an as needed, like a friendship, as opposed to father son. This different type of relationship. So when I mentioned the type of relationship that I have with other can be many different things, or many different people. Family, friends, close family, parents and siblings, or grandparents and uncles and cousins, and as well as friends, co-workers and all that. So all of that relationship with other. So if the foundation, when I mentioned earlier, if the foundation is incompatible, that person, for example, is, let's say that I was dealing with a crook. I mean, just for the sake of argument, I think this person is a trickster. He pulls tricks in businesses and all that. So my relationship with him is just gonna be like, walking on walking on eggshells. But that relationship is very important for me. Let's assume that. Therefore, my relationship with the person is not. You see, you already see the cracks on the outside. So you are aware. If you have to make that relationship, you're gonna enter with caution. So you're gonna be cautious, and as you're going through, and that relationship might not last, and that would be your decision, right? But you are doing it for a certain period of time. For example, in terms of trusting another person, and have we ever dealt with a person that we don't trust? No? I say no in the back. Have we dealt with a person that we do not trust? Yes? No? Don't know? Sleeping? Sorry? Didn't hear you, brother. Yes or no? Yes, we dealt with people that we don't trust. So that's a relationship that we enter cautiously. So what's a relationship that we entered? What's an example of that relationship that we enter with someone that we don't trust? The bank. If you don't trust the bank, that's a big problem. But that's possible. What else? I'll get back to the bank thing. Yes? Okay, you don't trust some people in your own family. And that may be because some behavior, some past experiences that gave that mistrust. Who else? Who else do we deal with that we don't trust? Could be business acquaintance. We can trust them to a certain extent, but not fully trust them. How about the plumber that comes to home? The plumber, the person who comes, or the person who comes and cleans the ACs, the air conditioners in the home. Do we trust them? We trust them? You have a regular one, or? Yeah, okay, good. How about your mechanic? How about the person who tows your car to the mechanic? Yeah. How about your electrician, if you call someone to come and fix the electricity? I trust my brother, but I can't rely on him to fix my car, because that's not a competence that he has. But the reason why we go out to deal with people who we don't trust is because they are good at something. So that relationship, we enter it with caution. So we sit with someone at home, make sure he doesn't do this, or when they take the car to the mechanic, maybe we ride with them just to make sure that they don't scratch the car. And the mechanic, we make sure that everything is out. Nothing bad about the mechanics, it's just a personal thing. It doesn't mean that the mechanic or or anybody that we go out for service, that they are bad people or they're not trustworthy. It's just a personal thing that we clean our car, we take all the cash laying around here and there, the cards, the touch and go machine, or we lock it in the glove compartment. So we do all that, right? Because we trust that he can do his job. But we don't know who else can access the car, so therefore we are relying on the person to fix our car, but we don't trust them. So these are kind of relationships, different relationships that we have. And that is from a different foundation, but actually, if I go to a mechanic, I don't know what foundation he has. I haven't seen a female mechanic, so I can't say he or she as a mechanic, but I'm just going to stick to he as a mechanic. So whatever the mechanic's foundation is, I don't know it. And if I were to go to talk to the mechanics, like, tell me about your principles, like, get out of here, I don't need your business. Let's get to know each other. No, I don't want you. Get out of here. Your dentist. Do you know what your dentist is doing to your teeth? We don't see the dentist doing anything to our teeth, but we trust that he or she can do a good job. But how many of us really sit with the dentist like, what are you going to do exactly? Which tooth? Show me. So all these things we do is just because we don't know that person on a personal level. We don't have that foundation established. So we need to know, we need to ask these questions, and the dentist or the surgeon will answer your questions. The mechanic might not necessarily answer your questions. But if the good mechanic and they're trustworthy, they are confident and competent, they would answer your question. So we're going to change this part and then this part, and then we're going to do that and then but we ask these questions to give us our comfort in our relationship with those people, lovely people who provide services to our community. Any questions or comments on what I just said? Okay. So the fact that I'm keeping you awake until now, that's achievement on my part. Now we're going to talk about the outside. So we talked about the foundation, we're going to talk about the walls and the design, and that's the building blocks. And the building, excuse me. So the building blocks is really the skills of the person that we're making a relationship. So that one of the skills that we need to have in a healthy relationship is the flexibility. Being flexible, meaning that if there is a challenge, we need to be creative. We need to have the capability to rebound. We need to have that resilience to deal with the challenges. We need to evaluate continuously the relationship and acknowledge there's a problem, and then work together in fixing it. That's flexibility. Authoritative leadership. So there's another talk about the types of relationships or leadership in a family. There's authoritarian and there's authoritative. You want the authoritative relationship. That needs to be to nurture, to guide, to protect the people in that relationship. So the flexibility, it helps us to maintain that relationship. If I am rigid in my relationship, it's going to make the other person's life very difficult. They would have to adjust to everything. And my rigidness is not constant sometimes, right? my rigidness changes. It's like it has to be done this way. You take care of the kids, you warm up the car, run the car, and get the kids all ready, and we'll see you in the car. And the spouse does all that, and then they go to the car. Or the person that is driving who sits in the car, and the other person, the other spouse, is running around the house, running after the kids, closing them and all that stuff, and then they bring him to the car while the other person is just sitting there. Not collaboratively engaged in the relationship. So that brings in a little bit of rigidness to the relationship. It will impact that relationship. So having that flexibility from the person who is saying, you take care of all that stuff, I just take care of ABC, or I don't take care of anything, I'll just go to work and make money and you guys do everything else. If the other person is okay with that, right? If the other person, if, like for example, if the husband wants to just only work and not to worry about anything else, and he wants the wife to do everything else, teach the kids, clothe the kids, do the laundry, do the cooking, everything, and maybe also go out and have a job. So that causes, I mean, if the spouse, if the wife is okay with that, that's up to her. That's a decision that they need to make as together. But however, as a human being, we are not able to maintain that for too long. Because her relationship with the situation with the children changes almost every day. So she needs to adjust to that situation of the children. But for the man, for the husband, his status is not changing. It's constant work, coming home, eat, go to sleep, get new clothes. That's all standard for him. So it's going to be not as hard on the husband, but it'll be more challenging on the wife. This is just an example. I've seen it also done another way, the other way around, where the husband is really a house husband, and the wife is really doing the work, and the same status, pretty much very similar to the example I mentioned before. So that's where the flexibility comes in. The husband, even though the husband is not highly impacted, he needs to reach out and evaluate the relationship. How are things going? Acknowledge that this is not working. You need to fix it. Come up with a better collaborative method to help the relationship prosper and to help the relationship to be nurtured. So having that flexibility to allow yourself to evaluate and acknowledge that there is a challenge, there is tension in the relationship because of the agreement that you two had before. It doesn't mean now breaking the agreement means breaking that relationship. It means that needs to be adjusted, needs to be reevaluated. And that is flexibility, and that is a skill. Another skill is to be able to be connected with the person that you are in a relationship with. Connectedness is having mutual support, working together as a team. What I mentioned earlier, that one person is taking one part and the other person is taking the other part of the relationship, that's fine, but we need to be flexible in adjusting to that as a team. Work together as a team. If you look at a soccer game or any sports, the teams are, the team members are moving around. They're supporting each other. They're helping one another. They're not always in the same place. They're moving around to fill in the empty gaps if there is any shortcoming from the other team member. Sitting where we are and finger point is really easy to do, but in a relationship it's quite lethal. And if there is a distance that was caused or any damage to the connection, not the relationship, to the connection, meaning that the husband is very busy with other things, with so many things, and the wife is busy with so many things. The father is busy with so many things, and the child is busy with other things. the mom and daughter, the father and daughter, the friends. I'm so busy with so many things, and my friends are so busy. We haven't connected for a very long time. There was no connection for a very long time. Then seek reconnection. Evaluate what's causing that disconnection so you can make that connection again. Not having that connection is going to impact the relationship. Any questions on what I mentioned so far? So we talked about flexibility as a skill. We talked about connectedness, keeping connection. Also having the skills of bringing in social economic stabilities and social connections as well. So being able to connect to a bigger body, a social system or community. Connecting to the community helps you to maintain that relationship, believe it or not. Having the ability to socialize with family, with friends, with other members helps you with that relationship with this person. Whether this person is in that social setting or not, that would help them be more connected to you, and more that helps you to also be more mobile, to allow resources to be used for social connections and social support and economical support. So having the social support and having the economical support helps us, or how to use them actually, how to utilize these resources for in our relationship is very important. So what happens in a relationship that is in danger, or that is in or is in it's what's the word I'm thinking about? If there is a relationship that is unhealthy, people feel shamed. They feel ashamed for reaching out for help. They don't reach out for a support system. They don't reach out to make a bigger connection. Like if I have a problem with my friend, for example, I'm a 5-year-old son, right? Or a 12-year-old son. I have a big fight with my friend at school. So I might be afraid to come and talk to my parents about it, because I don't want them to think that I'm a bad person. I'm a bad friend. I can't keep friends. So therefore I keep it to myself. But actually the best thing to do for that relationship with me and my classmate is really for me to reach out for a bigger system. Using the resources, I can reach out to my parents, I can reach out to my older brother, I can reach out. So how do you deal with this? Just you ask them. So I have this problem. How do you manage this problem? How do you manage your friend did this and this and that? How do you? So building that skill to reach out, excuse me, to reach out, to seek help is very, very crucial to the health of the relationship that you are in, and that would allow reconnection and rebuilding the relationship. So many times I ask people, what are the pillars of relationships? They tell me communication, tell me kindness, love, spirituality, all that. I strongly believe that all of these are skills. Communication is a skill, it's not a pillar. Communication, you can tell if a person is really having good communication skill or not from a distance. You don't have to be in a close relationship with anybody to know that this person has a good skills in communication or not. Therefore, it's not a pillar for the, in my view at least, it is not a pillar in that relationship. For example, how do I know a person has good communication skills or not? Clarity. Are they clear? Many times I ask people, where is such and such place? They tell me, go right. I was like, how is this right? So Should I take their directions? Actually, I don't. I ask another person. This is not right, this is left. It's not clear. Your communication with me is not clear. So therefore, I as a, even though it's a short relationship, but it's still, the communication is very clear. It doesn't have to be very close relationship for me to understand this person has good communication skills or not. Also, the ability to open up emotionally. Communication, so I'm talking about the skill of communication. So the ability to open up and share with that person emotional status. So many people were raised in a house that the only emotions that are in the house, either happiness, sadness, anger. Happiness, sadness, anger. And there's nothing beyond that. If you were to think about it, actually there are a lot of more emotions than that. There's disappointment, there's feeling alone, feeling lonely, feeling hurt, feeling disrespected, all these feelings. Now, these are the primary feelings that cause the secondary feelings, which is really anger. So when we are able to talk to the person, when we are able to communicate to the person that we're in a relationship with, our emotion status, that's a very healthy relationship. And I say emotional status, I mean the primary emotion. Not just, you're pissing me off, you just leave me alone. No, it's not that. It's about talking. And that's a very challenging position for anybody to be in. And you need the skills to be able to communicate emotionally. We don't communicate emotionally. We never learned how to communicate emotionally. And that's what we do in counseling. We teach people to communicate emotionally. How many times we say, I feel, and we don't say a feeling, we say a thing. Like, I feel you need to, you need to listen to me. That's not a feeling. I feel like you need to make a difference in your life. That's not a feeling. I strongly feel that there's something wrong with you. That's not a feeling. Because all of the examples I mentioned is about the other person. A feeling is possessed inside us. But if we're not comfortable to express that feeling in that relationship, well, guess what? That relationship is not that strong. The Prophet ﷺ told us, if you love someone, tell them you love him. And if you don't love someone, you tell them that as well. But how do we communicate that? Now, that's the part where we build that skill. It's a vulnerable position for a man, for example, who had lived a manly life that he copied from his father and from his grandfather and all that. So that's a inherited, not an inherited, but it's influenced experiences that, for me as a man, I feel awkward to talk to my wife about emotions, because emotions are for weak people. But actually, it's not. Talking emotionally to my wife can be, for the first time, making the man vulnerable to talk about it. But what do the wives mainly, what do they talk about? They talk very openly about emotions. They cry. Men hardly cry, as if it's a shame, and it's not. So when these emotions are expressed, many couples, they both together cry together. And crying is sunnah, if I may say. I mean, it's not sunnah that we should do it. It's sunnah that the Prophet did it. The Prophet ﷺ cried. He was crying with Abu Bakr, radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ, he was with Abu Bakr, and they both were crying. And Sayyidina Umar came in, and he didn't say, like, what are you guys crying? Come on. He said, what? He said, what are you crying about? So I can cry with you. That's the communication in emotion. He wanted to connect with the Prophet ﷺ and Sayyidina Abu Bakr in that emotion. And what did he say after that? He said, if I can't find something to cry about, I will fake my cry. He just wants to be that close to them, to communicate. So that's a sign of being close to the person, to mirror their emotion. What happens when our child cries from school is like, oh, the teacher didn't give everybody an apple except me. The teacher ran out of apples. But then what do we say? The child, oh, come on, it's not a big deal. We'll go buy you apples. Not a big deal. But he's not crying about the apple. The feeling is what? Anybody can guess? I'm sorry? Maybe neglection. He felt neglected. He felt disappointed, singled out. All these are feelings. But he's not talking about the apple. He doesn't care about the apple. That's not what hurt him. So what do we tell the child? It's like, oh, don't worry. We'll give you a whole kilo, a couple of kilos of apples. Don't worry about it. But we're not connecting to our child in that situation emotionally. Instead, what do we need to do in this kind of situation? We need to mirror the child's emotions. And that's a skill. To see the cry, oh, stop crying. No, we don't tell him what to do. It does hurt. When I'm if my son came to me like that at that age, when I'm his age, I'd be hurt the same way. But we sometimes expect our children to see things our way. But that's not fair. That's not fair. Another skill in a relationship that is needed is problem solving. And problem solving is not one person to solve it. It's your problem. You go fix it. Many times I have parents or one of the couples call and there's like, yeah, you need to work with my husband. You need to fix him. Or you need to go fix my child. I'm going to send my child to you. You fix him. He's not behaving. He's overacting. He's this or she's that. But it doesn't work like that. Problem solving is collaborative. If you really want to build that relationship with your son, with your spouse, with your anybody, you need to bring that person and collaboratively problem solve the relationship. All right? You can easily blame someone else, but in relationships it doesn't work like that because it's a collaborative thing. So I mentioned pretty much everything I wanted to cover for today, but I didn't talk about the pillars of relationship. I'm leaving this the best for last. So based on what I just mentioned, what are the pillars of a healthy relationship? Trust, very good. Understanding. Common values. Communication. What else? Helping each other, teamwork, very good. Support, very good. What else? Got 5. What else? Who has number 6? Mutual respect. Very good. That's 6. 7. Acceptance. Okay. 8. Empathy. Very good. Number 9. 9, going once. Come on. Number 9. Let's make it a 10. Let's end at 10. 9 is what? Faith, right? Yeah. And the last one. Do we need to have some kind of noise effect for the last one? I'm sorry? Emotional control. Very good. So I heard you all. I cannot repeat everything. I didn't write it down, and my memory doesn't allow me to do all that. That's a limitation on my part. I'm a human being. I have my own limitations. However, I heard everyone, and I respectfully disagree with all of it. Trust, you learn how to trust. That's a skill. Faith, that's a foundation. Emotional control, that's a skill. Communication, that's a skill. Help me out, what else? Understanding, mutual respect, all these are skills. What are the pillars of the relationship? I'm hearing a muffled noise from the back. I'm not sure what to make out of it. Yes. Love. Oh, do we learn how to love? Is love a skill? How many people think love is a skill? Or is it a gift? Skill. Okay, I'll try to make it easier for you folks. I'll tell you what are the pillars of a healthy relationship. It's actually one pillar. They're not pillars, they're not plural. It's just one pillar that would hold all those skills that we talked about on the foundations that we spoke about. It's one type of pillar that you would need to apply it to all of those skills. Okay, I gave you a hint. Any idea? I'm sorry? I couldn't hear you. Trust in Allah. Very good. That's very true. That's part of the foundation though. That's the foundation that we rely on to help us in these difficulties in a relationship. But what is that pillar for us? I tell you, I strongly believe in this. It's an authentic, committed engagement. If you are not engaged in the relationship to implement and improve all those skills, no matter what skill you learn, if you're not committed to engage it in that relationship, it's worthless. And it's authentic, that means it's sincere, it has all the beautiful things that Islam teaches us. So you implement this pillar for every skill, you're good. You implement this skill, this pillar in every foundation that we spoke about, you're good. We know what's halal and what's haram. If I want to make a connection with someone, a relationship with someone, that relationship is haram. I know the halal and haram. If I'm not committed and totally engaged to my foundation, then I will make a haram relationship. Isn't that true? Same thing with communication. I can learn the best, I can get someone to teach me the best skills of communication. But if I'm not committed to present it and bring it and engage it into my relationship, money wasted. Same thing for emotional control. It's a skill. If I'm not committed to implement the skills for me to control my emotions, then it's again money wasted, time wasted. So with that, I conclude my talk. I open the floor for any questions or comments. Engagement. How do I want me to explain and exemplify? Is that what you said? Yeah. To how to bring engagement. What does engagement mean? Okay, engagement. Very, very good question. Thank you very much. Just want to clarify. Engagement is not about the connection before marriage. That's not what I'm talking about. So engagement meaning being yourself committed and engaged in it. It's not like you expect someone else to do it for you. It's not someone else's fault. You need to contribute. You need to bring in that into that relationship. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran what? In Surah Al-Baqarah, the last two ayahs. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah will not I'm sorry? Higher, higher. You know what? Just say it. More than what you can bear. Very good. It will not hold you accountable for anything that you cannot bear. Anything that happens in your life, you can bear. Stepping out of it, blaming the other, you are not engaged. You're choosing to disconnect yourself, disengage yourself, not having that commitment to engage. So sometimes people engage like, you know what, I give up. That's no commitment. There is another type of engagement, it's like I'm engaged, I'm committed, but you know what? I don't see you committed to it. So therefore I stop. Well, that's the authentic part. You need to do it for the sake of Allah to maintain that relationship. You do your part, you do everything you can within that verse that we just mentioned, that you're going through whatever it is that you're going through. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows that you are capable of fixing it. He gave you all that ability inside you. That elaborate enough? You're welcome. Any other thoughts? You can challenge my talk. I mean, it's okay. It's not like. Any thoughts or comments, challenges? So what happens sometimes is when there is a relationship that is in danger or shaky or whatever, we blame the other person. But we don't think, what can I do to engage this relationship, to engage in this relationship so we can fix it? Yes?
And then on that note, I think this is a question more about skills. You know how there's some situations, say in a friendship or a relationship, where flexibility is not balanced. So one person is willing to give in more to the situation, or one person is way more rigid than the other. So how do you approach that conversation with emotional intelligence and sensitivity to like state that that's the current situation and you'd like to improve it, but without offending anybody?
Yes, it's a really good question. I cannot answer it right now because that's a skill development. So inshallah we can offer more workshops on how to build these skills. It's not something that I can tell you and you're going to be able to go fix it. It's not really that simple. It needs to be practiced, it needs to be corrected, and you need to build that ability to correct yourself on how to do that skills. Just like any skill we've learned. I mean, how many people went on a training for their job or went on a training for their, for the academic career? How long did it take us to build that skill? For example, addition, multiplication. We went through a lot of skills that took a long time for us to develop. But somehow in a relationship, we want to build a skill, we want it to be push of a button. Push a button here, or get an app, or get somebody, give you the answer. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately. Just that we need to commit, we need to engage in learning that skill and implementing it and engaging it into our lives. So there are a lot of questions like that. I unfortunately cannot give you a quick answer. But generally speaking, understanding what's important about the relationship from your side. How much of that relationship is important to you? At what level can you keep that relationship and you stay intact, meaning that not impacted by the other person's rigidity, for example? Keeping a distance. Like, for example, I gave a metaphor, one of my talks earlier or in the past, about relationships. Having a relationship with another person is just like having two people playing sports. The only difference is, because we're different people, the only difference is my sport is different than his. He's a soccer player, I'm a football player, American football. Or no, let's just use a hockey. Everybody knows hockey. I'm a hockey player. I have a stick, and that's how I play. He doesn't have a stick. He comes from a background as if anybody touched him, it's a foul or a penalty. So I come and just pushed him around, and from my side, this is how you play hockey. In a relationship, people come in their relationship with their own background understanding of how things are done. So when I play with him, let's say that this is a play. He's like, I want to play football. I want to play hockey. I have everything to protect me. I've done that part. So no matter what this person does, I'm protected. I'm padded. I have all that stuff. It doesn't impact me. But if I pushed him and shoved him against the wall, probably I'll break a bone in his, in his chest or something. So that's very likely to be, I mean, that's one example that we can give as the relationship between two people. How do you manage, how do you play together? How do I play with him? How do I play hockey while he's playing soccer? We need to keep a distance. How much distance? Whatever healthy distance that you can, that is good for you to maintain that relationship. And I use this example and this metaphor is when people, unfortunately go through divorce. So who says that when you go through divorce, you don't maintain the relationship? There are children, specifically or especially if there are children in the middle. Who says that the divorce means no relationship? The relationship has to be there. Different relationship, different distant relationship, but the relationship has to be healthy for the sake of the children. So that's why I use this metaphor, because not everyone that around us like us, not everyone around us that we like. So having that distant relationship does help the relationship. It doesn't mean that we break it, but we just want to maintain it. I hope I gave you a general idea, but really the specifics on how to come up with that, to be able to maintain that. It does take a lot of emotional control, building the trust that even though they're vicious or rigid or whatever, you can build that trust with them. It's few skills that really you need to be able to be successful with that kind of relationship. Thank you for the question. Any more questions? Yes.
Ustaz, what are the common factors when you see people unable to engage?
Unable to?
Engage in
the relationship, or
Yes.
engage themselves in.
You're talking about the pillars. Yeah.
Yeah. What do I think about if they're not able to engage? Well, they need to build that skill. We need to understand what's blocking them. They need to come forward and acknowledge what I said earlier. Acknowledge that there's a problem that needs to be fixed. If I'm a dentist, I'm not going to be knocking on every door like, you know what, you need help with your teeth. I need to acknowledge that I have a toothache to go see a dentist. So I need to acknowledge that I have a relationship problem that I cannot engage in the fixing or in the communication or whatever it is. So acknowledging that we have that's very good. It's a very good first step. Now the next step is to reach out for support that I mentioned earlier. Reaching out for help. Well, I mentioned the example of my 5-year-old lost his friend, didn't come and talk to me as a parent, but he could have reached out to me as a higher level of support. So reaching out for help, because we don't know everything. Especially when it comes down to emotions and relationship. We don't know really a lot of things. We just know what we watched on TV and YouTubes and whatever. Seriously, I'm just being honest here. We didn't learn it. Most of what we learned about relationship is what we saw our parents do. Most of it. If I see my dad do certain things a certain way, that's what I do. I didn't know how to do things differently. If I was raised by my mom, I will do the things but how my mom did it. I don't know anything other than that. I meant like if I was raised without a father, with only a mom, I wouldn't know what a father would do. I would just follow what my mom does, and I think that is what I'm supposed to do. That's exactly what happens in a relationship. So we tend to be influenced, not necessarily influenced, but we learn We learn by observation of how our parents did it, how their parents, how their uncles. Just we see the norm and that's what we are. But actually that's not necessarily true all the time. So acknowledging that you're not able to engage, it could be shameful for you or for that person. It could be like, oh, you know what, that's so unmanly. You know, just an example. Then we need to understand, where did that come from? Who said that it's, you know, that it's Ammar? The Prophet said, Ammar radiallahu anhu, he used to, one of the Sahaba was knocking on his door, his wife was calling his name, come here, or I don't know exactly the story, but she was quote unquote scolding him. And the Sahaba was like, how can you let your wife talk to you like that? But it didn't take his manlyhood, right? So it's really important to be mindful of our capabilities. And that's what I said in the verse in the Surah Al-Baqarah, لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah will not hold anybody accountable except for what they are capable of. And Allah created us to be capable of a lot of things. But sometimes we choose to say like, oh, you know what, I can't do it. No, but we can learn how to do it. So learning how to be engaged is one thing is to engage, seeking support. If the support is not helping, then reach out for someone who can teach you that skill. I hope I answered. You can elaborate more.
Yeah, and I suppose it comes with commitment after that, right?
Absolutely. And then when you start the journey of learning, that's the commitment. And then authenticity. You need to be authentic commitment. That you're doing it for the sake of Allah, to maintain that relationship for the sake of Allah. The sincerity, the love, all that authentic stuff. I hope I answered. Any further questions on that?
Not really. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Right? Any other questions or thoughts? Yes, brother.
Ustaz, I don't dispute the point that the pillar of a relationship is that it has to be committed, authentic engagement. I think that it feels kind of self-evident, but not that self-evident.
Okay, yeah, sure.
My question is more along the lines of, you're in a relationship, you're on the side that's engaged in cultivating the relationship, but yeah, your other half is not. And my question is that, do you give your other half the space to realize that they need to be engaged for the relationship to work, or you keep, sort of telling them that you need to be engaged, otherwise this is not going to go anywhere?
Good. So that goes down under the category of communication. It would go under flexibility. It would go under foundation as well. So this needs to be covering these three areas, would help in that situation. Now, as you are the active part, the engaged part, then you need to see, are you committed to go through it or not? Because you need to learn the right communication skills and how to communicate with a person who's rejecting, to acknowledge you have a problem. If you're not able to do that, as I mentioned earlier, you need to reach out to a higher system. That is also a skill, to reach out to a higher system. If the higher system is not helping, you need to find a person who is capable of helping that person to acknowledge. They need to put their part. They need to bring in their commitment and engagement. And if they choose not to, then it's your choice. How authentic are you to that commitment, with that engagement, in that relationship? That's up to you. You can maintain the relationship, but change it if that's going to harm you. If it's a harmful, toxic relationship, and that's going to talk about. Actually, I forgot to talk about the conflicts. I'll just briefly mention them. So one of the conflicts are toxic. You can stick around with a toxic conflict to fix it, but if it's toxicity is coming and impacting you becoming toxic, you need to call it off. It's like, you know what? I can't go further. We need to seek out for help. We need to reach out for someone who knows better how to deal with this. Another type of, so the conflicts are harmless conflicts. What's an example of a harmless conflict? Like, we're not agreeing on where to eat for lunch. That's harmless. We eat here or we eat there. It doesn't really make a big difference. Just I'm craving this type of food, but not that food. But if we ended up not listening, to the other person, or the other person not listening to me, it's not really harmful in a sense. And then the second part is, the third one is the toxic. The second part is the conflict when it comes down to rights. When my rights are violated, when my or the other person's rights are violated. These are conflicts. These are rise conflicts, and there's a way to handle them. So there is harmless, there is rightful conflicts, and there are some toxic conflicts. And the fourth type and the last type is the dangerous, life-threatening conflict. So you walk out the last one. The fourth type, you just walk. You don't even want to fix it. You just walk out of it. If you're in an abusive relationship, you need to really call it off. You don't want to fix it by yourself. You need to walk out, seek help almost immediately when that happens. So when it's toxic, then it's your choice. If it's something that you can handle, you can get engaged in it and try to fix it, build the skills and learn how to do it, then do it. If it's still toxic and it's impacting you, then you need to reach out for help and support. And if that's still not working, you need to ask for professionals or people who know. Like if you don't know how to use a computer application, what do you do? If you want to learn how to build a website, what do? You go figure it out on your own? No, you need to learn the skills on how to build it. So it's just everything we do in our lives, it has to be that we put that commitment and engaged in learning how to put that website. Same thing for relationships. So at one point, if the toxic relationship is not being fixed, if the website is not, you're not able to do it by yourself and it's getting complicated, you need to get a professional person who does it for you. Same thing for the relationship. And when it's toxic, you really need to reach out for professionals to help you with it. The earlier you reach out for people to help you, the better. You don't want to sit around in a toxic relationship for too long. Toxic meaning a lot of like abusive. Abusive. The last one I was talking about, physically, like the dangerous or life-threatening is physical abuse or sexual abuse, or sometimes emotional abuse can fluctuate between dangerous and toxic. Toxic can be bullying as well. Bullying can also overlap with dangerous as well. Many people in a relationship that are bullied, and you need to call it out. You don't have to always taking it in. And there is a skill on how to talk to a bully, how to walk away from a bully, and how to manage a bully regardless of the situation. There's one point I wanted to mention that I honestly forgot. So any comments on that? So if a website, for example, that is getting complicated, you're not able to fix it, you reach out for a guru that does websites. Same thing for relationships. If you're not able to figure out, go find a professional in relationships and ask them to help. And we do that to our cars. When was the last time you fixed your gearbox? When you're assuming that you had a bad gearbox. Or changed your own oil. It's a very simple procedure, but we always take it to the shop to change the oil. How come we don't do that for relationships? I don't know. We think that, oh, you know what, I can figure it out. Well, I can figure out how to do the changing oil and changing spark plugs. They still have spark plugs in cars, right? I think so. I don't know. My mechanic does that. I have no idea. But I think they still have spark plugs in the cars. So I can figure out how to do spark plugs. But do I trust myself that I'm going to do a good job at it? I don't know. I can't trust myself to work on the spark plugs in the car. But somehow when it comes to relationships, like, you know what? I'm Mr. Relationship King here, or Queen. I can figure it out. That's good. You can try. But that's where you need to acknowledge. If there's a skill that is missing, you need to go build it. You need to build that skill. You need to be committed, authentically committed and engaged, and the other person needs to be authentically committed and engaged. Both of you need to work what we talked about. Problem solving, flexibility, all that good stuff. That's going to help you move forward in the relationship. You get stuck, you need to be acknowledging, you know what, we have a problem, we cannot fix it, reach out to the bigger system. Or the bigger system is not helping us. Family, community, whatever it is, always go to professionals. And hopefully it stops there. Very likely it stops there. Any other thoughts or questions? I wonder if it's possible to remove or to split the questions and answers from the talk. I don't know if that's possible for you, but it'll be really nice to separate the Q&A from the talk. But that's just a personal preference. I'm not trying to be rigid or anything, but okay, all good? Yes, brother.
Just wondering whether you could share what would be the snippet for your next talk next week.
Oh, I do have, thank you for asking me that. So this is a 2 series. So today talk, I don't know, how many people, there are more people joined us from the last, from when I earlier asked. How many people saw the announcement for this talk? Okay, very good. So the next talk, so it's going to be Relationship Matters. So today is Relationship Matters, the pillars of healthy relationships. Now the next talk is going to be the same thing, Relationship Matters, but I will be talking about, I'm sorry? How to shield, so that's a skill. So you're going to build a skill, how to shield against hindering forces. So when you have this building, beautiful outside and all that beautiful things, there are winds, and the environment changes. The sun gets hot and cold. How do you keep that beautiful color of the building? How do you keep the cracks from happening in the walls of the building, let alone on the pillar of the building? So that's a skill that we're going to be talking about, one skill, inshallah, next week. Thanks for the question. Totally forgot about it. Any last question? Come on, there's one question that is lingering in someone's head. Come on, say it. Be brave, say it. Okay, going once. Going twice. Okay. Was that a question? Okay. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.